Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, if you've got a teenager at home, you are probably intimately familiar with a very specific, very frustrating weekly cycle. It's that cinematic contrast between the harsh, almost impossible reality of literally dragging them out of bed on a school morning and the absolutely epic, silent slumber that stretches long into a Saturday afternoon. Today, we're breaking down the science behind this cycle. We're going to look at exactly why that massive weekend sleep-in might make them feel a bit better in the moment, but doesn't actually fix a week of sleep loss.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover the weekend recovery myth, the reality of sleep debt, the social jet lag trap, biology versus bad behavior, our 6-part sleep plan, and finally, a 7-day sleep audit. Section 1. The weekend recovery myth. Why Saturday just isn't a magic cure.
Okay, let's dive into this. The family plan is usually pretty simple, right? Survive the week and then just let them sleep until noon on Saturday to recover everything that was lost. But science tells us this approach is pretty flawed. Think about a typical week in the life, this steady descent into exhaustion. A teenager sleeps 6 hours on Monday, maybe 6.5 on Tuesday. By Wednesday and Thursday, those late nights really start piling up. When Friday morning hits, getting out of bed is a monumental battle. So Saturday rolls around and they sleep until noon. Now, they might genuinely feel less sleepy when they finally wake up, but that Saturday crash is basically just a band-aid. It totally fails to fix the underlying damage to their system. Here's the scientific reality we have to face. The American Academy of Pediatrics clearly states that weekend sleep does not restore optimal alertness and is absolutely no substitute for regular sufficient sleep. So why does this matter to you? Well, because attention, mood, learning, and the body's internal clock are influenced not just by the total hours of sleep, but by how regular that schedule remains. The recovery they get on Saturday is only partial, leaving their cognitive and emotional functions still impaired.
Section 2. The reality of sleep debt. Spoiler alert, it's not like charging a battery.
You know, we often treat a teenager's sleep like a smartphone battery that can just be plugged in and completely recharged on the weekend. But biology is way more complicated than that, and mathematically, things go wrong pretty quickly. When a kid repeatedly sleeps less than they need, say they lose 2 hours every single school night, they accumulate a massive weekly deficit. If they lose 10 hours over the week, sleeping an extra 3 hours on Saturday mathematically fails to erase the pattern. The debt is simply way too large for a single morning to repay.
This brings us to a point that is absolutely vital to remember. Sleep recovery is not identical to charging a battery from 30% to 100%. Even if your teenager wakes up feeling physically less sleepy after a 12-hour weekend marathon, the neurobehavioral effects, things like their ability to sustain attention and regulate their emotions, they just aren't fully restored by this uneven roller coaster pattern. Research consistently shows that steady, sufficient sleep every single night is vastly superior for their brain function.
Section 3. The social jet lag trap. When your body clock fights the clock on the wall.
This right here is the aha moment of this explainer. The problem isn't just the total hours of sleep lost. It's the drastic shift in when that sleep actually happens. We call this the social jet lag trap. By definition, social jet lag is the mismatch between school day and free day sleep timing. So the issue isn't just sleeping in late once. The real damage comes from large, repeated shifts that force their internal biological clock to violently compete with their external social schedule every single weekend.
Let's look at how this builds into a very real problem. On a weekday, a teen might sleep from midnight to 7 a.m., but on the weekend, they stay up until 3 a.m. and sleep until noon. Yes, they are getting more total hours, but they have just moved their entire sleep schedule 3 hours later. This massive timing shift is exactly why Sunday night insomnia happens. By Sunday evening, their body clock is essentially operating in a completely different time zone. It makes it biologically impossible for them to just fall asleep at a reasonable hour for Monday morning.
Section 4. Biology, not bad behavior. Understanding the teenage brain.
Before we get into fixing this, I want to acknowledge that it's incredibly easy to get frustrated and blame teenagers for these late nights. But guys, this is a matter of biology. Adolescence naturally brings a biological tendency toward later sleep timing. Teenagers genuinely do not feel sleepy as early as younger children do. Their internal clocks naturally shift later. Then, we take that biological reality and compound it with hours of homework, early school alarms, social lives, and glowing screens, completely compressing their available sleep window into an impossible time frame.
A teenager who struggles to fall asleep very early is not necessarily being oppositional. I love this quote because it offers so much grace to both parents and teens. We really have to respect this adolescent biology.
But respecting it doesn't mean giving up entirely. It means we maintain firm boundaries around the avoidable delays to protect the sleep they so desperately need.
Section 5, the 6-part sleep plan, our roadmap to a much less painful Monday morning.
So, what does this all mean and how do we actually fix it? Well, we know the biology, we know the math of sleep debt, and we understand social jet lag. So here is a concrete, actionable 6-part sleep plan. First, protect school night sleep. Don't build your family system around 5 short nights followed by 2 massive recovery mornings. Work backward from their wake time and protect the week. Second, use weekend catch-up as support, not the main strategy. A little extra rest is fine, just don't shift time zones. Third, limit major wake time shifts. Keep weekend wake times relatively close to weekday ones. Fourth, use morning light and daytime activity. Opening the curtains and getting active really anchors the body clock. Fifth, protect Sunday evening. Don't let it turn into a late night. Wind down early. And sixth, you absolutely must review the weekday cause of the sleep debt.
Section 6, the 7-day sleep audit, finding the pattern in your family's schedule. To truly fix that weekday cause, you need data. This brings us to the 7-day sleep audit. Over the next week, here's what we want you to track: school night bedtimes and wake times, weekend sleep and wake times, any daytime sleepiness or naps, and most importantly, identify the main reason bedtime was delayed each night. Now, don't drive yourself crazy obsessing over perfect minute-by-minute measurements. What you are looking for here is the big picture, the overarching pattern of timing shifts and weekday losses.
Because weekend sleep isn't the only target here. If your audit reveals homework is the main delay, the upstream change is to start it earlier or review the workload with teachers. If screens are keeping them up, set a firm digital landing time. If it's a late activity, see if it can be reduced. If it's late caffeine, cut it off earlier in the day. Identifying the root cause allows you to intervene before that massive debt even accumulates.
A quick note on naps, since you'll be tracking those. A brief, planned nap can certainly reduce immediate sleepiness, but long or late naps really shouldn't become a crutch to maintain a chronically short nighttime sleep schedule. Also, it's super important to point out, if severe daytime sleepiness persists even when they're getting enough sleep opportunity, or if you notice loud snoring, you should absolutely consult a qualified healthcare professional.
Once your audit is complete, the goal is simple. Pick just one. Make just one upstream change during the week. Don't try to overhaul their entire life overnight. One small change, like moving homework up by 30 minutes, can significantly ease the massive sleep burden they carry into the weekend.
And when you talk to your teen about this, try to use validating, non-judgmental language. Actually, try saying exactly this: we are not treating Saturday as a complete reset button. The goal is not to punish them by forbidding them from sleeping in. The goal is to stop making the weekend carry a massive, impossible sleep burden that ruins their Sunday night and makes their Monday morning absolutely miserable.
Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helps you build a healthier routine for your entire house. So go out there and protect that sleep. I'll leave you with this final thought to take a hard look at your family's routine. What is the real weekday cause of your sleep debt? And what is one upstream change you will make tonight?